Hi everyone, this is Selvi. Today's interview question is: which factor is important to predict the timeline of the project? Is it capacity or velocity? Answer is very simple. The question has the word forecast. Whenever we see the word forecast or predict, automatically the answer is velocity, because velocity is one metric that helps us in predicting or forecasting the timeline of the project. But here comes a question. My team is new. I don't have average velocity. Now, what is the answer for this question? Is it capacity? No. Then, for this, we need to first understand something called as ballpark estimate or high level estimate, which is also called as rough estimate. We already discussed in our episode about this topic, that is the rough estimate or high level estimate. So I'm not going to cover that here. I request you all to refer that episode so that you will be able to understand how to calculate it. Now, after calculating this rough estimate or high level estimate, is this estimate going to be the fixed one? No, definitely it will change, because we just prepared this as a high level estimate. So definitely it will be changing. But how can we actually change it? On what basis we will be changing? We will be waiting till the situation where we will be able to calculate the average velocity, and when we are having the details about average velocity, we will be using that average velocity to change or modify this high level estimate. Because initially when we prepare the high level estimate, we have only certain high level details, and the estimation is also very rough level. We don't have complete clarity. Now when time passes, we will be having much more information. As well, we also have something called as average velocity calculated from our team. So now we are in a better position to make this estimate in a much better way, which is also called as this new version of this estimate from the high level estimate. So if the team is new, the first step is to prepare the high level estimate, and from the high level estimate, once we have the details about the average velocity, try to fine tune on the high level estimate to get the next version or the detailed version of the estimate. So if the team is existing, then we don't have a problem, because we know the rhythm of the team, we know how the team is performing, we know how things are happening, and we know what is the average velocity of the team. It is much easy for us to predict or forecast the timeline of the project. Then what is the purpose of capacity? Capacity is going to be helpful. This particular factor, what we calculate, is going to be really helpful to prepare our sprint or any time boxed events. When I say any time boxed event, that is a sprint execution. So for a sprint execution, this capacity is going to help us how much bandwidth we can plan. But for time period like 6 months, 1 year, if the project timeline is going to be for a longer period, getting the capacity and preparing this capacity is going to be a tough job, because that may also definitely change. Because how we will be preparing the capacity? We will be planning the capacity with the help of the details getting shared by the team. We can get the details for few sprints, maybe like 3 sprints, maybe like 6 sprints. What is your leave plan? What are the training plans you have? All those details. But for a longer period like 6 months and 1 year, definitely this detail cannot be very accurate. So on what basis we will be using that? So for time boxed events like sprints, for sprint execution, it is much more helpful. For a set of sprints, like 3 sprints, 6 sprints, definitely we will be able to calculate the capacity, plan the capacity with the details provided by the team. But definitely for longer period, always we should use these different factors, especially for prediction and forecasting the timeline. Average velocity is required. But for new projects, definitely we will not be able to prepare that. We need to consider certain risk factor in those cases. What are those risk factor? One is capacity will change, because the period is very long, like 6 months, 1 year. Definitely there can be changes in the capacity. The capacity is not going to be accurate. That is one risk. Second risk is we are not having average velocity. We are coming up with high level estimate. So definitely this is a rough estimate or high level estimate. So we are expecting some more changes that will come in this estimate when more details are obtained. So For new projects, whenever we are forecasting and predicting this timeline, we need to be really careful. We need to be very specific in mentioning this risk factor, and we should also have some mitigation plan for this risk. So in a nutshell, I'm going to cover again the key points what we have discussed. The question is, which factor is very important for predicting or forecasting the timeline of the project? Is it capacity or velocity? So whenever we see the word prediction or forecast, we always go with velocity. But if in cases where for a new team where we don't have the average velocity, we should start with ballpark estimate or high level estimate or rough estimate, then fine tune that estimate once we get more and more details, including average velocity of the team. If the team is an existing team and we are just planning for one more version, we know the rhythm, we know the performance, we know the average velocity of the team, so we don't have any trouble. We will be in a good shape to forecast, or we will be in a good shape to predict the timeline of the project. What cases capacity will be helpful? For time boxed event of sprints, where we know that this is the period and this is also a shorter period, and that is also for the upcoming few sprints, it is easy for the team to plan and share the capacity details. Whereas if it is for a longer period, there are chances this capacity is not going to be accurate. So for when preparing the timeline for projects, especially for new projects, we need to mention risk factors separately. The risk factors are capacity may change because we are planning the capacity for 6 months or 1 year, which may not be accurate. Definitely there may be changes coming in. Second thing is we don't have average velocity and we don't have complete details, so we are just preparing the high level estimate, which will definitely undergo changes. Prepare this risk register and plan the mitigation plan for this risk whenever you are sharing the details of timeline about a project or the project timeline. Hope this episode would have been helpful for many of you. Thanks everyone for listening. Happy learning and stay tuned.